www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org.
Double slit experiment. The mysterious double slit experiment has puzzled scientists and mathematicians of all shades for many years. Their experiments have demonstrated that there seems to be more to the way atoms work than just being mindless objects floating in our atmosphere, and so, scientists scratch their heads and wonder what this force, this apparent intelligence is, and where it comes from. Or perhaps it would be better to say that they query what this force is, and ignore where it comes from. But, of course, as is so often the case when dealing with physical effects, we really need to investigate where the intelligence comes from first, and then what the force is, will be revealed. As we have often said, physical manifestation is not at all as it seems. We look around us on planet Earth, and see all of God's marvelous creation revealed, in all its glory. Planets, stones, rocks, crystals, plants, creatures of all shapes and sizes, and, finally, man, busy pursuing its life from birth, growth, reproduction, generally, decline, and death, to be replaced by the next generation, on, endlessly. We accept this, and so, seldom question it. But, in recent years, a strange branch of mathematics was brought into the educational field, that is called quantum mechanics. A strange name, for an investigation of the somewhat hidden and mysterious world of the spiritual force that creates all that is. The word quantum means amount. Mechanics means the machinery, or working parts of something. But, we are used to mathematicians doing their best to present simple processes in as complicated as fashion as possible. This, of course, is part of the egocentric makeup of people who try to appear cleverer than thou, instead of presenting information in a simple fashion. So, to return to the reality of life. As we have often explained, there is only one point of life, one singularity, that has been given various names. This point of life is connected to, and, to a certain extent, controlled by something we call collective consciousness, or id, which is our preferred term. So, we need to visualize a single point of life, floating in a timeless, spaceless, void. That is all there is, in the whole multiverse. One singularity in, essentially, nothingness. Let us take a moment to explain why this is. God is all that exists. Everything that we can see, taste, smell, measure, is God creating illusions, in order to grow in wisdom, because this illusion seems, and acts, as if it is real. Thus, we all live in this illusionary world, but, through our individual and collective consciousness, imagine that it is real, and that we create a form of reality, in a very similar way that a film producer can create a false reality, that is projected onto a screen, and, for the duration of the film, appears quite real, if the film is well made and well acted. We appear to have wandered from the discussion of the double slit experiment, but, in fact, we have broadened the discussion, in an attempt to explain to those who have little or no knowledge of collective consciousness, id, how things actually work. We have been asked why God exists in, apparent, nothingness. We have already explained this, but will do again for those who are curious. God created the whole multiverse, all the different layers, 8, basically, in which everything exists. But God existed before there was anything either physical or spiritual. Before there was something, there was nothing. Nothing but God, and so, God exists in this apparent nothingness. Of course, this is not really true, as there is always something for God to live in, but the discussion of that would be outside of this field of investigation. So, we return to the singularity, this one point of life, that is all that exists, and, we repeat, that this point of life is both God, and also the id, the collective consciousness. Now, we will attempt to draw this discussion into the field of quantum mechanics. It has been remarked by those experimenting with atoms, that if they observe the behavior of atoms, they can influence their behavior, and they wonder why. If scientists had the basic knowledge about higher, advanced physics that we give you, the answer should be obvious. So let us explain how the double-slit experiment works. We all create our own reality. We have stated this over and over again. As nothing really exists, we can create, with our imagination, our own individual id, that which we want, need, or believe to exist. So, the simple answer to the double-slit experiment is that the person conducting the experiment creates, in his mind, an outcome, and, lo and behold, it appears. This does not imply that the scientist consciously wants the outcome of the experiment to appear in the form that it does, but it does imply that he expects a result, and, unconsciously, influences the atoms to perform in the way that confirms the experiment. So, what is really happening? As nothing really exists, except for the one singularity, we can, with our mind and imagination, create whatever form of reality we think should be. So, atoms are created, as is the machine that blasts the atoms at a board with two slits in it, and those atoms are projected, by the will of man, at the slits, and the scientist influences those atoms, with his imagination, to divide equally. We realize that this seems a bit far-fetched, and we do appreciate that the scientists involved with this type of experiment would not agree, but the simple truth is that these scientists create the outcome from their mind, their will, if you want to look at it like that. This singularity, this unique point of life, is actually creating everything, because it obeys our id. We all, in a way, have our own version of this singularity, and so, we can all create our own versions of life, and we do. So, we wish you to comprehend this simple fact. Scientists set up the two-slit experiment, and blast atoms at it. Then, they expect the atoms to behave in a certain fashion. As the scientist is creating his own reality, this singularity obeys the scientist's desire, and acts in the desired fashion, pretending to be lots of physical atoms, hitting a photosensitive plate, and following the desire of the scientist. The atoms divide, more or less exactly into two bands on the photosensitive plate, because, that is the logical part of the scientist's mind, creating a logical outcome. Others repeat the experiment, and get identical results, because, collective consciousness links all the minds of all the participants together, to produce a similar result. In fact, if anyone doing the experiment could think independently, he could produce any outcome he wanted. The sad thing is, that these mathematicians, who investigate quantum mechanics, have considerable difficulty in opening their minds to the simple fact that nothing exists initially, except the singularity, and we individually, and collectively, create everything with our imagination. If we can accept this truth, and go on to remove the singularity, and accept that we actually create everything just by our consciousness, the singularity is not required at all.
Thank you for watching this video lesson. Please visit www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org for more lessons and free downloadable books.